This podcast is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or exhibition may result in civil liability, criminal prosecution, and the wrath of the tall man.
Boy!
Hey, let's talk about you, the ID10T community events at ID10T.com, like Russ Stevens, a.k.a.
Cat Bus Russ,
who has started a podcast called 90 for Chill, which Russ says is dedicated to movies with a runtime between 74 and 99 minutes, the time frame that I feel is ideal. Russ, I could not agree with you more. That is a fantastic idea. Russ goes on to say there are times you need a cinematic fix but don't have time for the latest Scorsese masterpiece or offering from a comic book universe. There's also times when you need a conclusion to prevent a binge costing you a whole night. My guest and I try to follow these guidelines as we chat up features that are definitely worth your time and are beyond easy to make time for. 90 for Chill, the podcast, can be found on all major podcast platforms at 90forchill.com, and that's spelling out 90, Ninety, 4 FOR, chill. So there you go. Thank you so much for sharing, Russ. Really great idea for a podcast. Events at ID10T.com for everyone else.
Greetings, Highlander. You call? Let's have some fun.
In all their centuries on Earth, nothing could have prepared them for the Quickening. Christoper Lambert, Sean Connery, Highlander 2, The Quickening.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Hello and welcome to I Dig Crazy Flicks presents 90 for Chill, the podcast with Cat Bus Russ. I am your host, Cat Bus Russ, and this rewind's going to be my Christoper Lambert episode from 2022, and I decided, I better go and throw something on there, some more Christoper Lambert, to at least make this new, I suppose. Thus, I watched Highlander to the Renegade version, which is not what I intended to. Well, first off, I was actually looking for a 2017 Michael Biehn movie to go and reissue that episode. But going through there, going through Plex, I found that Highlander 2, The Quickening, was listed on there. And it's like, The Quickening? Not the Renegade version? It's got the artwork for The Quickening. All right, I want to see this movie I loved as a teenager just because of how silly it was, honestly. And that's not what you get. You get the more coherent recut from, I believe, 1997. I did buy it on VHS. I got it on DVD now. So, yes, the Renegade version is a better movie from a technical standpoint, but I think it loses a lot of the charm that The Quickening had. Primarily the fact that the immortals are framed as aliens, which makes a lot more sense than saying, well, they are from an ancient Earth, and they're sent into the future to do battle until there is only one. Okay, that's basically you're saying that, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense there. So the original Quickening is they're rebels on planet Zeist who are sent to Earth as a punishment, and if somebody wins the prize, they can stay on Earth or they can come back and save Zeist. Obviously, Connor McLeod won the game in the first film. He saves the world with all his knowledge by building an ozone-protected layer. Yep, that doesn't really age well. And a bitter authority from the past decides he still can't stand the fact that McLeod gets to die on his own terms and decides to send some other ancient Earthlings back to the future to go and dispatch McLeod, inadvertently giving him his power back, inadvertently letting him call Ramirez back from the dead, Sean Connery's character, and now he's on a mission to break the shield, because basically planet Earth is now Schrodinger's planet Earth. We don't know if the shield is actually protecting us, if the ozone layer has rebuilt itself. We just gotta go and get out there to find out. My only real issue, though, I guess, when compared to other Highlander movies, it kind of lacks scope. We don't get a lot of going back in time. If we're going back in time, there's nothing exciting like Deborah Unger Kerr's boobs. But, or, immortal battles. We really only have 2 immortals in this movie, so it kind of just doesn't feel fresh. But it lets Michael Ironside really play a Terminator, and a Terminator that chews scenery, that should be the price of admission, I suppose. But I like the actors in it. Virginia Madsen, Connery, John McGinley is in there as a weasel. So there's just so much silliness. I can't help but like this movie still. So yeah, my only correction would be to change that device of Ancient Earth versus Planet Zeiss. I kind of like how crazy media was, definitely in the 90s, Highlander 2 is nothing like Highlander. Super Mario Brothers is nothing like the video games. I think there's a little charm to that, and I'm trying to work on a panel. I just want the title, not the IP, essentially. And hopefully I can bring that up at some point. Lambert, Connery, and Ironside all know the assignment. I'd say John C. McGinley does too. So it's not painful, honestly. It's just silly. I guess you should stop that. As for the other titles that are going to be covered in this Christopher Lambert Rewind Wednesday, I'm going to be bringing up Fortress, a film directed by Stuart Gordon about an inescapable future prison ran by Kurtwood Smith. The 1995 Mortal Kombat, which is primarily the reason I ended up buying Mortal Kombat, I think it was 11 for the Switch, because you could download skins and voices from the film. Who doesn't like some Paul W.S. Anderson, also? Plus, I guess I'm just trying to figure out where Mila Jovovich would have fit in then. But I digress. And we'll cover Highlander from 1986. The original, the one that started it all, Lambert versus Clancy Brown, and a lot of familiar 80s faces like Joe Polito. That's the one that comes to immediate mind. And Highlander 3, The Final Dimension, the R-rated cut. I really think they almost, it was an interesting one back when I saw it as a kid, whoa, I don't really need all this sex? So weird vibes on that one. So I hope you enjoy all of these reviews, and before we get to them, let me get through the formalities. If you want to support the show, first off, rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast apps, 5 stars preferably. Be as honest as you'd like to be in the comments. I will learn from them. I'll learn to be a better podcaster, or I'll learn if you're a butthead, or I should say shithead, after the Sean Connery discovers the term in Highlander 2. You can also become a Patreon member. That's patreon.com/IDigCrazyFlix. Right now, I'm only looking for $3 a month. If I'm not worth it, Ava the Queen Kitty definitely is. Get her 3 tins of cat food. In exchange, you will get yourself the ad-free version of this podcast. You'll also get access to the original 90forchill.com, the podcast feed. You'll get yourself either a waterproof sticker or a refrigerator magnet to help you promote the show, like I do at my job. Magnet on my locker, sticker on my water bottle. And also you get a shout out as long as you are subscribed. So let me thank Tim Bates. You can find him on the podcast feed for episodes about 1989's Bloodsport in Space, Arena, and the 1988 horror comedy classic Night of the Demons. Thank you, The Scoop Staley, an underappreciated backstage talent of AAW wrestling back in the day. And thanks, Dad. But the best way you can help the podcast out is be my guest. If you've got a movie, a theme, a director, an actor, as long as your topic is bonkers, not exactly in touch with reality, I'll happily give you the time to chat about it. But if you got something a little more down to earth, something you can 94 chill with, like a Kevin Smith movie or a Richard Linklater indie film, which reminds me, I gotta watch Dazed and Confused this week. As long as it's between 70 and 100 minutes, I'll give you at least 40 minutes on Zoom. You can submit those topics by emailing russthebus07@gmail.com. That's RUSSTHEBUS07@gmail.com. Or you can follow me on my social medias, at CatBusRuss on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. I'm primarily on Blue Sky. Not a big Meta fan. So, I think with no further ado, let me thank Station Marie Harden for keeping an eye on me, keeping me out of too much trouble, and I hope she's doing the same for everybody else she touched in her life, and I hope she's squeezing the ectoplasm out of the most jellicle of kitties, Skimbleshanks the One-Eared Angel. Thank you for checking out I Dig Crazy Flicks presents 90 for Chill the podcast, and enjoy the show.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
After a 10-hour workday, it's about 11 p.m. when I finally get around to finalizing my podcast and uploading it to the internet. So I definitely need a lot of energy, but I don't need all that caffeine, so I rely on Dubby Jitterless Energy Blend. It's a coffee fruit extract, so you get about as much caffeine as a cup of coffee, but you get all the vitamins you could possibly wish for and all the energy, and about half the price. If you spend $4 a shift on energy drinks, you're spending $80 on sugar per month. Why don't you cut that in half and try Dubby Energy Blend? And if you go and visit Dubby.gg and use the promo code CatBusRuss at checkout, you're going to save yourself 10%. So on top of spending half the money, you can at least go and get one over on the taxman. So that's Dubby.gg, promo code CatBusRuss, and start feeling energized today.
30 stories below ground, halfway to hell, and no way out.
What they give you?
31 years.
You are about to enter the Fortress, a privately owned maximum security prison operated by the Mentel Corporation.
John Brunick, the most decorated captain in the history of the Black Beret.
Prisoner 95763, step forward to be intestinated.
You have nothing. You are nothing.
We will monitor your behavior.
I don't think you realize your predicament. You have nowhere to hide.
We will control your thoughts.
The law is clear. We must maintain the population balance.
We will invade your dreams.
This is an unauthorized thought process. So touchy.
Disobedience will not be tolerated.
It's been in there for 3 days, and no one has ever lasted 4.
You will be enhanced and reprogrammed to be a more efficient human being.
When my kind are in the majority, there will be no more overpopulation.
A high-tech prison
Who started the incident?
built to withstand anything
Let's find out.
except an innocent man.
We go tomorrow morning. Activate the strike clone.
Christoper Lambert, Fortress, where the punishment is the ultimate crime.
Going out won't be fun.
Oh, but it's gonna be a trip.
So I've just concluded watching 1992's Fortress, a Christopher Lambert-led vehicle directed by patron saint of the podcast, one Stuart Gordon. This is a really interesting one because you never really imagine Gordon with seemingly a big budget. This was filmed in Australia, probably when Warner Brothers was just setting up their Queensland operations. Kind of has a Paul Verhoeven feel to it, including the futuristic, kind of looks a lot like Mars, I'd say, from Total Recall. Of course, you got Kurtwood Smith as your primary antagonist, which only kind of slips up because he's kind of supposed to be emotionless, and not to say that Kurtwood Smith doesn't do that. It's just that this is Red from that 70s show. This is the guy who killed Peter Weller in RoboCop. We want the anger. So that's kind of a miscast, and this is a Stuart Gordon movie with Jeffrey Combs, but again, no Barbara Crampton. I don't know what's going on there. 1992 is a blank on her IMDb. It's a story about a society where, resources dictate that only one child per woman. Now, Christopher Lambert and Lauren Lachlan, who I think should have been replaced by Barbara Crampton, but I digress, have just gotten pregnant with their second child. Truthfully, they didn't really have a kid. It died during childbirth. So it's kind of unfair, but they get imprisoned for it in the Fortress, an underground prison where everything is essentially controlled by a computer, Kurtwood Smith, even to an extent. And it's just their goal to escape. Pretty simple premise, all things considered. It's a 90-minute movie, so works out fine that way. And it's just very surprising in a lot of places. The body horror is nice in this, so there's a great Stuart Gordon callback. It's actually surprisingly brutal. It's kind of like the MPAA must not have thought much of this feature getting an audience, which I know it made most of its money on video back in the day because it did spawn a sequel. But you got lots of male nudity, you got very graphic violence. It's a pretty nihilistic flick, all things considered. I mean, it even foreshadows that, yeah, getting out of this alive under Christopher Lambert's orders might not be so nice. There's a lot of cute elements, like Jeffrey Combs is in this, as I said, and he's playing a hippie explosives expert, kind of a nerd character, but definitely not the neurotic type that we've seen him in previous Stuart Gordon films, Reanimator and From Beyond. The only things I can really be miffed at is that it tries to incorporate CGI effects, and it's pretty limited at best, more just altering video, definitely not lawnmower, and nobody really holds the Lawnmower Man in high regard. So just, I don't know, we could have probably gone with something different, because the imagery is nice, just that let's throw some pixels in there doesn't really help it. In the end, it's a movie that ages well, especially since I watched this on the night of June 24th, 2022, after Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Story is quite appropriate about controlling people's bodies. Its only negative aspect otherwise is that you have a protagonist named Karen. It's a lot of fun, and, doesn't make you think too much. I guess, in a sense, that's kind of lesser than most Stuart Gordon movies, but, sometimes we need a break from Lovecraftian bollocks.
In each of us, there burns the fury of a warrior. In every generation, a few are chosen to prove it.
One of you three will decide the outcome of the tournament.
Three strangers will travel to the mystical realm of Outworld to defend our people against Shang Tsung.
You will die.
And his forces of darkness. In an ancient tournament. One more victory.
Your soul is mine.
And our world is theirs.
It has begun! You can't run from me, Shang! I don't need to run! Johnny Cage, Scorpion,
Combat begins.
And because I shared a GIF from this movie on Twitter, I have revisited Mortal Kombat for the Christopher Lambert podcast episode of 90 for Chill. Now let's get right to the concept of the white savior that Christopher Lambert portrays in this feature. He is the Thunder God Raiden, a god followed by a bunch of Shaolin monks. So needless to say, let's just look at history. The Chinese probably wouldn't have fallen for the white god concept like the people from the New World, Western Hemisphere. I mean, they had plenty of Europeans screwing around with them way before that. So I would think it'd be best to have cast at this time, say, a Asian American actor who's got just a unique voice. And I would say B.D. Wong. Now, he was still on the come up at this time. But if you see the movie Men of War, which also features the actor who portrayed Kano in this feature, Trevor Goddard, gone too soon, I think he could have pulled it off. I would have probably taken him in 2021, and this is coming from a guy who popped for seeing Ichi the Killer's Tadanobu Asano as Raiden. But I digress there. This feature is still a lot of fun, but the dynamic range does not help this movie at all. You can really see where the green screen ends and the actors begin. This is fun, perhaps just because it's like your legendary Christopher Lambert movies where a lot of dialogue is constantly repeated, like Highlander 2, with just going over the rules of the game. And in this one, you have a scene where Christopher Lambert says, "It has begun." And then you have a bunch of special effects, and you have Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa as Shang Tsung repeating the line right away. So, and with that said, this podcast is kind of telling me I'm running out of movies to do for a Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa podcast. I mean, I've already addressed Showdown in Little Tokyo, now Mortal Kombat. So it's going to take some work. If somebody wants to jump on a the Man with the Iron Fist franchise, I think we can do that. A lot of the CG definitely doesn't hold up. And there's just some obvious mistakes like, Sub-Zero goes in, freezes, and then disintegrates a guy who was just throwing a kick at him, and you see his head, and it's like, yeah, that's a CG head. So come on, you gotta know when to incorporate, especially in the mid-90s, practical effects with your CG. But with that said, if you really wanted Paul W.S. Anderson to come back for a sequel to this feature, yeah, you probably could have done it 10 years later when 3D was all the rage, because you watch his movies like the Resident Evil franchise, and you see just the cheapest effects coming at your face, but it's kind of cool because it's coming at your face. So a 3D Mortal Kombat with Paul W.S. Anderson, I think, could work. And thinking about some of the visual effects, it's kind of like, so when souls go through Shang Tsung's eye, is that supposed to be a tribute to Lucio Fulci? I don't know how much of a student of the game Paul W.S. Anderson is, so just wishful thinking. Now, I should have paid more attention at the end credits to see what bands I still need to see who've been on this soundtrack. I've seen Lords of Acid, who's behind the Immortals, who did the classic theme, and I've seen KMFDM numerous times. Plan to see him in September, so that's a new goal for me. So I guess that fulfills my therapist's question. What can you do that you will solely enjoy, not dependent on others? With that said, you can't cancel again, KMFDM. My only other observation is, and I think this just fun booking concerns, is that Mortal Kombat is supposed to be about life, according to Raiden. So this movie could have really used referees. Like when Shang Tsung's getting his ass kicked by Liu Kang in the end, it's like he's gone and taken tens of unanswered hits. Somebody's got to throw in the towel for him. And in the end, setting up a sequel, you know that Shao Kahn's not going to play by the rules, so why not make screwy rules? Have an athletic commission take over Mortal Kombat, have referees. Bad decisions was what makes for great fights sequels. Just my opinion. Enough of all this. Christopher Lambert is great in it, and it's kind of, again, sad that it's a role that just can't happen again. If you're needing somebody who just sounds cool, this is evidence that Christopher Lambert is that guy.
From the dawn of time we came.
moving silently among you, down through the centuries, immortals.
Down through the ages, he has traveled through time, fulfilling the legend that there can be only one. But now, there's another.
His name is Cain, the most feared and evil among us. Highlander's out there somewhere, and he owes me for all those years.
Two enemies from another time are about to collide in this one.
I'll see you in hell.
There can be only one.
Highlander 3, The Sorcerer.
And I've just revisited Highlander, The Final Dimension, or Highlander, The Sorcerer in Europe. And we'll talk about the original Highlander because, again, shared a gif of that on Twitter. But otherwise, we'll leave the other films of the franchise unscathed just because, in the event, I can do a Highlander podcast. Now, with The Final Dimension, it was originally purchased as an H for Ali's Accessory Shop on Etsy's Trash Feature Review, hence why I'm getting it out of the way. And when I remember seeing it back in high school, so late 90s, I was very good about following the MPAA suggestions, thank you. I kind of was turned off by this feature. It seemed too dependent on the excessive sex, which I think may have just been, I wasn't that interested in Deborah Kara Unger's dual role in this. She just seemed kind of dull, and I'm not saying she's a bad actress because of it. It works great in the movie Crash, a David Cronenberg classic. So it's just not... Oh, 13, another movie where she's perfectly cast. So it's just not... wasn't my cup of tea. I thought they were basically saying, well, she's pretty, so if you don't like the acting, you'll like her boobs and bum. Mario Van Peebles' character, that's a lot to talk about. I thought he came off as a little too creepy, a little too rapey, a little too violent. The biggest thing about him is Mario Van Peebles is trying to impersonate Clancy Brown. And unfortunately, Clancy Brown's character, having his rough voice and such, came as part of the story. No, he's just trying to be Clancy Brown off the bat. It's just very weird what they were trying to do with this, and it's even more weird that it seems like William Panzer, one of the producers of the franchise, has had his hand in so many of the movie scripts, so it's kind of weird that he forgets his own logic. Let's just starting with how the movie begins with Connor McLeod trying to learn from the sorcerer Nakano, who is the master of illusion. Cain, Mario Van Peebles' character, is trying to get that power, so he's hunting him down, and in their battle, his quickening ends up sealing the cave. McLeod gets out just in time. Very hard to tell with the direction, but he does. Thus, sealing Cain up in there for 400 years. Connor McLeod thinks he won the game back in 1985. Turns out, and he should have known, there's still another three immortals sitting around. I don't know why there's three immortals, because Cain immediately decapitates one of his immortal compatriots right after getting freed, which just doesn't make much sense. Like, what were you doing, playing cards against humanity to stay sane for 400 years? Logic is pretty much non-existent in this story, which again It's kind of insulting when your producer is a writer on it. Let's see. So if the game was still going on, we have 9 years of where immortal children can be born, I suppose. So basically, I'm calling for an Anakin Skywalker scene in this movie, which, no, we don't get. Again, with the title being the Sorcerer, that makes a lot more sense, but when he makes an emphasis on illusion, what does teleportation and morphing have to do with it? It takes a while to finally just calm itself down. It wants to get everything done so fast that there's just no character development. So once we get to the just McLeod versus Kane, it kind of settles down. But it really should have stuck to the Highlander series continuity, which in the end it does, with a tease right before the credits start rolling. There is like a little bit of lightning on the old McLeod sword sitting up on the shores of Loch Shiel. Another thing this movie is desperately missing is the Queen soundtrack. I'm not saying you need a Queen soundtrack. I'm just saying let's throw in Who Wants to Live Forever. They at least did it on Highlander the series. Let's throw in, a kind of magic like Highlander 2. I can't say that the other two sequels necessarily have a lot of Queen, but it definitely plays closer to the series, so a little more forgivable. I will say that the battles between our pro and antagonist are fun, and it's fun to see that they at least keep the Russell McCallie special effects, the explosions and such. But since they are able to use so many images from the original Highlander movie, you can tell that they've incorporated portions of the Final Quickening into this feature's Final Quickening. Let's just say the battle at the end just doesn't feel right with like a Motley Crue knockoff soundtrack. That just tells you the experience that is Highlander Endgame, and I'm not going to deny I did have fun. I'm a little less jaded as an 18-year-old who stood behind Highlander 2 while this just wants to be shocking type feel. I guess once you get into Italian horror, shock is just not going to be something that's going to hit you a lot. If you're a Highlander fan, give this one a watch. It's definitely for us still. It's two guys wanting to cut each other's heads off. And a little bit of time stuff. The time stuff's actually very insignificant in this one, all things considered. We just get a French flashback and the opening being in Japan. But can't have everything, I suppose, and when it's a Dimension Films feature in the 90s, you're lucky to get anything.
You gonna chuck him off a cliff? Shake, we could have chucked him off the roof and stayed at home.
No, this is a magic cliff here, like in the Highlander. So you will become the Highlander, and you'll roam the earth forever trying to kill yourself. But you won't be able to, because you'll be immortal. Won't that suck, little man?
Well, actually, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it does.
Then I'm gonna do it.
No, you're not. I'm doing it.
Shake, wait. The Highlander was just a movie, I mean...
Oh, Frylock, the Highlander was a documentary, and the events happened in real time.
So this cliff is magic?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
I'm doing it now.
No, man, look, you gotta be born a Highlander. You can't just become one.
See, he saw the movie too.
Yeah, that's right.
I know I saw cliffs, okay? And there was lots of magic everywhere. And Mel Gibson.
Braveheart, hello?
Oh, you think you're the expert? Let's see how much your ass knows about flying. Yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
You done? Because that took forever.
I am forever. I am immortal!
Shake, no!
Wait. I'm not immortal here, okay?
Hang on, Shake. We'll call for help.
No time to let go.
Hurry. I think that the branch will hold for... It's not holding!
So I've just rewatched Highlander again. We haven't gotten to the scores of viewings. Maybe a dozen over the past... nearly 25 years, I suppose. I'd say I finally got to really own it at 17, so yeah, 25 years. So, one viewing a year, I guess. Not quite that, thankfully. And I know it's not true Scottish cinema, but maybe this is why I'm a big Trainspotting fan. But I digress. There's a lot of things that can be learned from this feature, like all movies should open with a Queen song as an overture. I mean, it works for Flash Gordon, and if only this film could have worked in Best Friend, because, as I said, every movie is made better by Best Friend from Queen. Now, there's a lot of silly things aside from the plot, which is immortals have been around for millennia, fighting each other to the death via cutting off each other's head to gain the prize, which I believe at the end of this feature you kind of think like, so you're kind of the Holy Trinity with the knowledge you gain, so, and expectations of what to do with it. But, other little silly things aside from that is, Russell Nash, the first Connor McLeod, Christopher Lambert. The first scene essentially takes place at Madison Square Garden, where the Freebirds are wrestling some jobbers and the Tonga Kid. And I just kind of find that funny because Nash has crappy seats. And then he also uses that as a way to get out of his first execution he commits. Basically, like, shitting on the Freebirds. Well, the Confederate gimmick, which has got me barred from Peoria Wrestling, I really feel for it this time. Other issues, I guess, is that this Blu-ray, which was awesome, honestly. The sound's great, the picture's good, but it's distributed by Lionsgate, and I hate them having distribution rights to about anything because they forget about a lot of stuff. But on this viewing, I did, for the first time, catch that this was distributed by Canon, so adds a little extra charm to it. Despite the great picture and sound, you still see that Russell Mulcahy, I think this is his first feature, perhaps. The continuity errors in scenes that still persist in his other features, all the way up till at least Resident Evil Apocalypse. No, I'm sorry, that was Resident Evil Extinction. But, again, I digress. Are still present, so he's never really gotten away from being a montage-heavy music video director. So, just an observation with that. But I will say this movie features the kind of wipes and transitions that George Lucas can only wish for. I mean, some of them are a little stretchy, like, transitioning a watch ad into Connor's face, but silly, but you kind of appreciate the fact that they went for it, which I think is basically what Highlander is. You just appreciate the fact they went for it. It's ridiculous, but unlike the rest of the series, this is the only one that really feels epic, because you get to start the story and figure out how McLeod, two stories running at once, basically. You go back to see how McLeod got to the 20th century from the 16th, and him having to deal with the end of Immortal's existence. If other Highlander movies, and I guess the problem is just like, okay, I guess we need more Immortals or more Highlanders. So I could see why I got into a discussion once trying to sell my podcast to a stripper at Big Al's in Peoria, and she said, I watched those Highlander movies, and no, they suck. Well, you gotta, I mean, come on, but... And basically, she's just somebody who doesn't watch movies, and I run into a lot of people like that. I mean, come on. It's used to just be $3 every Friday night to rent something. Again, I digress. Mention Highlander series, it works out fine, I guess. Just the concept of seeing how weird Immortals can be, and then letting Duncan MacLeod take their heads. So I'm just basically saying, like, I think that's why the franchise doesn't work, with the exception of the Quest for Vengeance, or the Search for Vengeance, which is an anime from the guy who brought us Wicked City and Ninja Scroll. That's definitely worth a view, and it's got some fan service, even to the Highlander series. Another thing I liked about this movie even more is just appreciating the 2D effects in the final Quickening. It's kind of like we are ending the movie with something that you would have seen in Pink Floyd The Wall, which is just fun and charming in my opinion. Otherwise, the other thing I gathered from this is I have to check out Glenmorangie. That's a Shoot, I had it pulled up on my Google. Come on. It's a Scotch. And Glenmorangie, I guess. So, I'm sorry to offend my Scottish fans. I'm more sorry if I offended whiskey lovers. Scotch lovers in particular. Which, look, that's the end-all, be-all in my opinion. So, that's what I got from Highlander this time. I don't know why Christopher Lambert just wasn't made into the action hero that, say, Van Damme and Seagal were. His laugh is just far more priceless, I think, than the ponytail on Seagal or the splits from Van Damme. Just an opinion, and since I'm working on trying to get a Van Damme podcast done, I don't want to offend any further.
Superman!
So, as I was editing this review for Highlander, I realized, oh yeah, Christopher Lambert is blind. Hence, he can't or shouldn't even be doing action movies. Gosh, the stories of injuries on Highlander 2 is enough. And that's not just to Christopher Lambert. Michael Ironside can tell you, just make this guy, cast him as a bookworm or some sinister horror guy with, again, books. Books is the answer for Christopher Lambert.
Can I hear a wahoo?
This podcast was made possible by the love and support of Dave and Cindy Stevens, Rory Stevens and Allison Higgins, Danny Daniels, and Stephanie Smith.
Long live Flash! You've saved your Earth. Have a nice day.